So hello and welcome. I'm Philippa Haynes of Insight 101.
And I'm Mark Lee. Welcome to another episode of the Accountant's Success Secrets podcast. This is where we showcase and celebrate successful accountants who've been running their own practice for a good few years and whose stories can inspire and encourage other accountants in practice around the UK.
Yeah, we asked them to share their story, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned on the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener. If you'd like to share your own story in a similar way, or actually give us somebody you would love to hear from, we've actually had a request this week. Please do get into a recommendation. Yeah, please do get in touch with Mark or myself and we'll see what we can do.
Absolutely. Our podcast today is supported by the Tax Advice Network. Their website exists to enable you to find exactly the right tax specialist whenever a client's tax issue, challenge or problem demands a second opinion, or when you want to avoid going beyond your level of competence and experience. It costs nothing to use the website, where you'll find tax experts addressing over 100 areas of tax. Just choose the advisor you want and contact them directly through the website. Simply visit taxadvicenetwork.co.uk to find out more.
So today on our podcast, we are delighted to introduce Rosie Berridge, who is the Director of Accountability Edinburgh, an award-winning accountancy firm that she started in 2009. She aims to make her clients smile. That's a really good one. And there are 14 in Rosie's team now, some working part-time. Everyone in the team either has or is pursuing accountancy qualifications too. They provide clients with bespoke packages ranging from basic compliance work to a fully outsourced finance function and everything in between.
Welcome, Rosie. Is there anything else you'd like to add by way of introduction?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You are very welcome. It's great to have you here. As you know, we aim to keep the podcast to around 30 minutes. That may be challenging.
I'll do my best.
Before we went live. And we do that by focusing the discussion around a few key questions. So I'll start with the sort of classic combination. What attracted you to start your own practice, and how did you go about doing that?
So I started a practice, having listened to a few of these, I've discovered I'm not at all unique. I started this practice more or less by mistake. It was really a side hustle, I guess, set up at a time where I was having children. I had caring responsibilities. My mother was living with me and my husband, and I had a toddler and twins. And so in the context of all of that, I decided it'd be a really good idea to set up an accounting practice. So I did it, as you can imagine, on the small side in the first instance. And it was really when I was ready to set up. That was probably maybe a couple of years after my mum had unfortunately passed away. That I'd started up on a small basis in 2009, but it wasn't really until 2012 that I started being more thoughtful about it. And so really by mistake, and it grew again just by word of mouth. So really, it came to me rather than me going out and actively looking for it. But I discovered, there's potential here.
Great stuff.
So that's how we grew. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were actually saying that things took another turn as well, didn't they, during kind of lockdown and the pandemic? So
yeah.
What happened there then?
So I feel like I've kind of reinvented the practice multiple times. It started off as I say, as this side hustle. Then I started being this, kind of very small practice. Really, what I then was very focused on, having just come out of this similar environment, was I wanted to offer opportunity to people who were wanting to work part-time. I was really passionate about that. That had been really important to me when I'd been setting up and when I'd been employed. And so that was really what I was looking for. And then, yes, you're right. During the pandemic, everything changed. It was as everybody knows, it was such a tricky time for all sorts of businesses. For us, where we'd been providing kind of outsourced bookkeeping finance support, really working hand in hand with our clients on a daily, weekly basis, we suddenly found that those clients didn't want to commit to that anymore. And so then in terms of the work that we were providing for them, we were really valuable from the point of view of we were really actively going out and finding out about grants, we were finding out about furlough, we were still doing all the compliance things that they needed to do that we normally do. So, kind of doing the VAT and the payroll, but we didn't really do, all of our other work in terms of, I guess, the nice to haves were gone by the wayside. And we did some cash flow forecasting, but that's quite a difficult thing to do when you've got no idea. I mean, we were doing several different scenarios, but for some people. But what really then started to happen was we had people being referred to us by other accountants with whom we work. And so this was an opportunity for some businesses who had taken a pause and started to find that there were things that maybe this was an opportunity for them to fix things that weren't right. And so there was an example of a coffee shop who had, so this was a chain of coffee shops and bakery who had got 6 years worth of unreconciled transactions in their bank account, which was causing the owner really sleepless nights because she was doing her own bookkeeping.
Oh.
The accountant involved didn't really know how to deal with that, and so asked us to help. And so we agreed with the accountant that at a year end they'd kind of got a reasonable position. We kind of looked at that and thought, okay, well, we'll take it back to year end. We rewrote the current financial year, and as we were doing that and reconciling, it was really because they had an issue with their point of sale integration. And as we rewrote it for the current year, what we found out was the reason that they had an issue with their integration. And so we fixed it, and then we showed it to the client and we showed them how to fix it and how to do it on an ongoing basis. And what was really intoxicating about that moment was the smiles we got. And so that was a real turning point for me, was the power that we have with the skills that we have. And normally people think that accountancy is really dull, but here I've discovered a superpower. I can make people sleep easier at night, right? I did actually have one client who described me as better than a sleeping pill, and I'm not entirely sure I should have said that. But I think that's the thing, that's the joy really of what we're able to deliver, is that we can make things just work better. And if we can ease that finance function, then that's great. And also, I'm not holding on to that. I'm not, kind of territorial about that. I'm not going to try and keep that a secret. I pass that on to the client and say, this is how you do it. You can do it now. And we've never heard from them since, but I check in every now and again and everything's working smoothly and she's still very happy. And that's been, like 3 or 4 years. And so in COVID, I guess what we saw was there were 2 types of accountant. There were those accountants who rolled up their sleeves. They got really networking on LinkedIn. That was where LinkedIn became a massive thing for me as well. They started talking to one another and swapping information and really providing valuable resource to one another so that that can be passed on to clients. How amazing that was. There was also then a bundle of clients of accountants who seemed to just hide. And I think the other thing for me then, what became really apparent was that and I'm hearing more and more, I continue to hear all the time, is that clients really want to have a relationship with their accountant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have people coming to us all the time who say, we never speak to our accountant except for some time after the year end. And that's really upsetting to hear that, because I know there's lots of great accountants who don't do that. But it's really upsetting to hear how many accountants still do that. So I've lost track of what the question was. I'm really sorry.
I think you've answered it, but
okay.
I mean, when you were talking, it reminded me, and I can't remember the car brand, so bad me, but they talk about it's smiles, not miles, and that's kind of, I love that position around smiles, and that for me, I would, as a marketeer, I'd be doing something with that. But anyway, I guess in your response to how you set up, you've already talked a little bit about your learnings. You've just talked now about how accountants, some really roll up their sleeves and some don't. But from your perspective, you set up in 2009 and also had previous job, etc. before then.
Yeah.
What have you learned along the way, do you think, that now stands you in good stead?
I think the main thing is that I think I'm less worried about making mistakes now. We've reinvented ourselves quite a lot, and I think my team would say as well that I'm quite impulsive. I'm quite spontaneous, so I'm really keen to try new things. I think maybe what I would have had previously would be a reluctance to try something new. I'm not so worried about that just now. I think really for me, what I'm focused on is I want to make sure that we listen to our clients. And I think that's the thing. You can get really stuck in your kind of day-to-day compliance work, chasing receipts, and and we're doing a lot of bookkeeping now. I'm an accountant, I'm an AAT accountant, but we really focus on that bookkeeping management account piece because the bookkeeping is fundamental to delivering those accounts and delivering that information. I think kind of identifying, putting myself now in the position of your client and working out what they want rather than what we need to deliver in order to get to our compliance job. So I think it's switching that dynamic around so that I'm coming at it from a client's point of view, like what is it that they need to know? And okay, the receipt stuff can be a little bit annoying. It's a compliance thing and we want to make sure that they recover all their VAT and we want to make sure that everything's right and everything's in the right place. But really, at the end of the day, we want that so that we can deliver the numbers to the client so they can decide whether they're going to try this new product line, whether they're going to employ a new member of staff, whether, and so that we can have reliable projections, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm interested in this idea of reinvention because, I understand the spontaneity piece, but I love this reinvention thing because actually a lot of people, including accountants, aren't that kind of nimble. So what is it about, what spurs you on into this reinvention? Is what's going on there?
I'm a bit like a magpie. I kind of go to Accountex. I went to Xerocon this year for the first year. I'm going to Accountex North. I love going to these things. I really like networking with other accountants. I think it's brilliant to hear about what other accountants are delivering. And so then I think, oh, that's great. I'd love to do that, And so I think it's much more that it's kind of getting that excitement from other people is what keeps things interesting and exciting. I've got a long list of things that I'm planning to do, so watch this space because there's all sorts of new things coming. But yeah, no, I think that's it. It's just kind of keeping your ideas fresh by going out there and talking to other people and finding out. And just again, it comes from listening to your clients and thinking what it is that they need and trying to be creative and inventive about how to support that.
I love that. I think that's one of you mentioned accountants networking through LinkedIn earlier, and then you can learn from chatting with them and listening to them speaking at Accountex and other conferences and events. I think it's wonderful. It's one of the great benefits we have in the 21st century.
And so much so, actually, so much so that we give a CPD budget to all of our team, but we make sure that they ring fence some of that so that they can go out and do some of these events, because I think it's really powerful to go out and find out what's happening, not just to go and listen to suppliers and go and listen to the HMRC talks and all of that stuff, which is all good stuff, but go and listen to some of the accountants' experiences and see what they're doing and delivering for their customers.
Awesome. That's brilliant. And a small plug, not so relevant to you perhaps, because you've got quite a sizable team. But a lot of the sole practitioners who belong to my sole practice club, specifically because it enables them to chat with other accountants who are running similar practices to them. Some have no staff, some have many staff. But I think it's the benefit is much what you're talking about there. Although I tend to curate the conversations, shall we say?
Nice.
Yeah. So having explored all of that, Rosie, and recognising, as you said, you did make some mistakes along the way. Can you share some of those mistakes and what you learned from them and in order to correct them?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I wouldn't hope to sit here and say, oh, I've made lots of mistakes, but now I'm perfect. I'm still making mistakes, and hopefully less fearful about that. I think there's been so many mistakes. I mean, like, I think a typical one is starting out on an hourly rate. That's been a very difficult, that was a stupid positioning, but I think we all did it, and you kind of position yourself at the same rate that everyone else charges, and then think, right, that's me. That's been and done like some time ago. I mean, that was many years ago that we got rid of that.
And just to be fair to listeners, it's not, yeah, I don't think it's stupid to start on an hourly rate. It's because
No.
that is
Okay.
one.
No, you're right.
The mistake is if you stick with it when it's no longer working for you.
No, you're absolutely right. Sorry, that's absolutely true. I think my mistake was with that is that I worked on an hourly rate, but the real issue with that for what I was doing, especially when it was small and it was maybe just me or maybe just one or two of us, is that then when you want to really burrow into something and there's a big reconciliation to do, and it may take you 4 or 5 hours, and the client has no interest in that. They don't care that you found £17, but I mean, it's obviously really important to us to know that everything's right and it's all squeaky clean and we understand it all. And I know there are plenty of accountants who would just say, oh, £17, just write it off. But there was, there have been many examples of when, that's indicative of a bigger error. We all know that. That's good stuff. But the fact is the client doesn't get that. And then also, because of the work that we do, we were quite often involved in also working with a client to put together a payment run. And so when we're putting together our invoice and it's going up and down like this, I'm giving no certainty to my clients about what they're going to pay for us. And so when I'm sitting there and thinking, oh, you need to budget, but I can't tell you how much I'm going to be because it just depends what I find, then, so it really then became quite quickly apparent to me that in order to save that conversation, I needed to do two things. I needed to move to a fixed fee and a direct debit, because then I didn't need to be involved in any of those awkward conversations about fees. We'd had that straight up front. It was all very open and transparent. And then I didn't have to think about it again until it came to putting our fees up. And so that's another thing, was, not putting my fees up was another mistake. And the other thing, which is connected, is scope creep. And I'm sure lots of accountants will identify with that, but it's really easy when you're involved with a client, especially on an ongoing regular basis, that they say, oh, and by the way, what do you think about this? And before you know it, you've been kind of roped into whatever.
So learning about things like fee increase, because I hear a lot of that, how did you kind of in the end tackle that conversation? Were there any kind of insights there? Did you just literally kind of find a way of doing that and making it easy, or how did you do it?
So I was working with a business coach when I came out of the pandemic, because I was conscious that my business was changing and I kind of wanted to think a bit strategically about that. And pricing came out of that. I mean, it very often does when you're working with any kind of business advisor. And so he really encouraged me to have a go and put my fees up, and I tested it and did all those things. I thought, I kind of repriced everybody behind the scenes, thinking, well, what does this look like if I, and so I tried lots of different scenarios, came to something that I was happy with, and rolled it out. And I lost one client out of about 40, and I thought, okay, well, I'm not overly concerned about that. But then when I rolled it out, I then said, and we'll put our fees up by around 5% each year. And so every year in April now, I put our fees up, and the next time that we review the client on an annual basis, we price them against the increased prices. So, but we give them an opportunity. We're quite granular in our fee proposals. We give them the opportunity to say what services they want. So our fees are based on what they want, what services they want, and at what volume there is of that. So if their business grows, our fees grow, but that means that's fair, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're trying in all of this to be fair and transparent and open, because I'm a business owner, they're business owners. you know,
Right.
and we're coming at this as equals. And so what works for me has to work for them. And if it doesn't, then we can come up with something. Do you know, either we reduce their service slightly, or you know, but I'm not reducing my fee because I'll find someone else.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that's a commercial attitude, and of course, it's also one that you can afford to take because of where you are in your journey and how
Yeah.
the practice has grown. So
Yeah.
that losing one client out of 40,
Yeah.
is less of an issue because presumably the additional fees paid by the other 39 more than compensated for
Yeah.
that.
And I'm regularly going out and looking and talking and networking. And so I've got a reasonably strong pipeline of new work. So that gives me some confidence to know that, you know, I know that what we do is valuable. I'm still seeing those smiles, right? I mean, I can
Love it.
measure their success in the smiles that we get.
That's
So
all. I just
Yeah.
love this focus on smiles. I think on your website it talks. Somebody described you as the Mary Poppins of accountancy. I wasn't quite
yeah,
sure.
do you know who that was? That was my
No,
husband. My husband described me as the Mary Poppins of accountancy, but I think probably because he was one of my very first clients. But
I
but
think
yeah, I like things neat and tidy. Spick and span,
it's
as we
best we don't
say.
go there and explore that further. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I love all of that. I mean, what's coming through to me is just how sort of grown up, you know, if you look at psychology, the sort of adult to adult way of
mm,
working with other businesses, and that's not just talking about fees, but also the way that you're working with them, the way that you're planning out the fee structure before you even have that conversation. It's a really sort of grown up kind of transaction, which I think sounds, you know, obvious, but actually I think a lot of people will take that away and sort of think,
yes,
actually, I'm probably not doing that homework before I actually sit and talk to the client. And as you've said, you both having a business, it's both that mutual kind of, you need to both be benefiting.
I
So I love
think
that.
that's a huge advantage for accountants to have run a business. I mean, I think the other thing for me is that in the pandemic, after the pandemic, as I was growing the business, I took this conscious decision that, okay, our fee income has nosedived, but I can see the potential and I'm going to start hiring staff. And so that then led me to a point where I had to take a conscious decision to fund that. And so this was not a point at which we're making huge profits. We weren't at that stage making profits. It just took a leap of faith. But I
Yeah.
think I believed in the product and I believed in the team and I knew that we could go out and sell it. And I knew that that was really powerful, that feeling that we were delivering to people. And so, you know, a long, hard conversation with my husband, who was maybe at that point not maybe thinking about me as Mary Poppins, but some kind of train. But you know, I was really passionate about it, and so we took a conscious decision that we were going to fund that growth. But I think that's given me in itself an insight, because all of a sudden then my own skills become really important. I need to be able to cash flow forecast. I need to be able to budget. I need to be able to make a plan. I need to make sure that that the team is staying on track. I need to have realistic measures about what success looks like. I need to have all of that in place for my business. And having gone through that experience now, it makes me much more, I think, empathic
yeah,
when others are in that boat. I recognize when people aren't sleeping well. I recognize what they say when they're worried about cash. I know what it looks like when you're not paying yourself, but you're making sure you're paying your staff. You know, I've been there. I get that, and I'm now confident that I can support
Yeah.
people because I know firsthand how to turn that around.
Yeah.
that's
So this
absolutely awesome, Rosie.
But
I just want to just go back if I may. Sorry, Philippa.
you
yeah,
carry on.
One thing you said and almost glossed over was you said, I can sell it. I think what's absolutely key for anybody listening here is that you have the skills, the desire, the ambition, and the ability to go out and find, source, attract new clients,
yeah,
which not everybody does. And I think that's great testament to you. And alongside the business skills that you've got, recognizing your practice is a business and that giving
yeah,
you that empathy with clients is
yeah.
awesome. Really
I
brilliant.
think, thank you. I think actually that comes out of a key thing that I had a key conviction I had really early on, which lots of other accountants thought was crazy. And my key conviction was that I didn't want to do financial statements, and I didn't want to do corporation tax, and I didn't want to do personal tax. I'm an accountant. I'm qualified to do all of those things. Other people with my qualification do all of those things. I just had no interest in it. And I knew that I was much more interested in the day to day and supporting business owners to know if they're making a profit. I was never going to have the volume of clients that I thought you needed to have in order to be able to deliver that tax advice well.
Mhm.
Because I think if you're going to do that, you need to have exposure to lots of people.
Yeah.
And other AAT accountants, because I've been involved in the branch network and gone to conferences and all that stuff, they've always told me I'm absolutely crazy, I'm leaving money on the table, what on earth are you doing? But the flip side of that now is that I work really collaboratively with other accountants, because every single one of my clients has got another accountant or an auditor or a somebody. And that means that they see our work, they see our working papers, they know the quality of work that they're going to get from us. And now most of our referrals come from accountants. And
Awesome.
so
Brilliant.
and so actually having that conviction of knowing what we're good at, sticking to delivering that work that we really are passionate about, means other people recognize that, and they fire people our way when they don't want messy clients. They know that we'll do that.
I think what's lovely, because I was going to ask you what makes you unique or what makes your firm unique, but I think you've answered that quite nicely there. And there's other stuff that circles around it, around this kind of trading and smiles and
Yeah,
messy clients. So you
yeah,
found yourself a real niche, which
yeah.
is what I'm all about. Just listening to you for 25 minutes, I've already kind of seen that sort of little glint of what it is, that special sauce, which is really nice.
Yeah,
Um,
thank
Uh,
you. I mean,
it's
yeah, it's people, it's connections with people, really. I think it's just, and
yeah,
I don't think that's unique. But there are, yeah. I mean, I think I always recommend that clients go and speak to several accountants, because I think it's really important that they get someone that they like and that they want to spend time with and that they're prepared
totally.
to take advice from. I'm not necessarily unique, but I might be the best personality fit for you,
yeah.
for you. So I would always say to people, I would never say we're unique. I know lots of people, you always ask lots of people about what makes them unique, and they struggle with that. And thank you for finding my unique, so I don't have to think of it.
Yeah, but I
Well,
mean, we all do have, and I think it's one of, accountants are terrible at sort of understanding that actually it's the person behind the business, which is what you
Yeah,
said, that brings that kind of brand to the fore, and it's then kind of being able to turn that into copy and imagery and your marketing, so that people really get a sense of who you are, and they don't have to listen to you for 30 minutes, although why they wouldn't, I don't know, but that's what it's all about.
yeah,
very, very much so. And linking what you both said uh, together, it's not just about personality; it's about values as
mhm,
well. And
Yeah.
Philippa's work helps evidence that and bring that to the fore
mhm.
when she's advising her clients and helping them. And everything you've done just sort of really emphasises that as well, Rosie. So
Yeah.
well done, well done.
Thank
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, are we getting to the end, Mark, or is there
Yeah.
another question that you can add
No,
in?
I think we've covered all the question, or
Yeah.
Rosie's covered everything that we would have asked. So
Have I
Yeah.
answered them before you've asked them? I'm really sorry.
No, no, that makes our life so much easier. We love people who are chatty.
yeah,
But, I use this 30 minutes in many ways. Obviously it's kind of out there in the ether, and, other accountants can listen in, or, clients or whatever. But I also use it very much to recommend people and say, oh, well, listen to such and such. You'll get a sense of who they are. So, if somebody's listening to this and they really like how you do business, how can they get in touch with you? What is the best way?
Okay, so I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm quite active on that platform. So just as Rosie Berridge, We also have a website, and our contact details are on there too. So that's just accountabilityedinburgh.co.uk. So that's all one word, Accountability Edinburgh.
Awesome, thank you. And Philippa, how can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101?
Yeah, well, if they want to find out a little bit more about their special sauce, what makes them different and unique, then you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can contact me via my website on www.insight101.co.uk. And Mark, tell us a bit more about you and your Soul Practice Club.
Well, online everywhere. I'm Bookmark Lee. Business card is a bookmark. Not many people use business cards these days, but people still use bookmarks.
Hey, it's different. There we go.
Indeed.
Great.
Online everywhere. I'm Bookmark Lee. The Soul Practice Club has a link from my website and from my LinkedIn profile as well. And
brilliant.
That's it.
Yep, well, that's it. If you've enjoyed the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, please share the love online, subscribe and leave a review. We're on Apple, Spotify, and you can also catch us on YouTube. So there's plenty of opportunity and plenty of places to find us. So it'd be great to have your feedback.
Absolutely. It all helps to potentially broaden the reach of the podcast. And do please contact either Philippa or myself if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast, or if you're aware of somebody else as brilliant as Rosie, who would themselves either like to be on the podcast or who you would like to hear from. Do recommend, and we can get in touch and see if we can persuade them to join us.
Exactly. There's nothing like being recommended. So, you know, it should be a joy for anybody who is invited on.
Absolutely. My thanks again to Rosie and to my brilliant co-host Philippa. Until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Bye for now. Bye.